Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday. Today is October 16th, 2020. I cannot believe we are halfway through the month of October, but it is what it is. Halloween will be here before we know it, then Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then guess what? Yay! 2020 will be over with. I've never wanted a year to be over with so much in my life. I'm super excited about our topic today, going over fiscal fitness and strategic planning for a very successful 2021. And we've done this topic several times in the past, but I think that it's more important now than ever before, because the way we're operating our programs and our income and our expenses is so incredibly different now than it's been in the past. And if you haven't taken a good, strong look at your finances, since the pandemic, and especially going into the fall, the new school year, you're a little behind, all right? So I'm going to share a lot of information with you today to set you up for success, to have a better 2021, and let's run better businesses. Hey, first off, high five, you're still here. So you need to give yourself a big pat on the back for your business plan and your operation. The simple fact that you made it through this pandemic and you're still here. That's our goal, is to continue to be here. That's what we want right there. Now, just a disclaimer to everyone out there. Most of you know me. I am not a CPA. I am not an accountant. All right. I don't have a CPA or accounting background. What I am is a poor white boy who grew up with absolutely no money and was very, very poor growing up. Worked my hiney off my entire life. I typically worked 2 or 3 jobs my entire life. In 2006, I decided that I was tired of working for corporate childcare organizations, making other people money and doing things their way. So I decided to start saving my coins, working as much as I possibly could, and finally saved up enough money to purchase my own school, and started from there. I balance my checkbooks every single day, and I can tell you where every single penny in the company is at. All right. Now, I don't know if it's just because of my upbringing and the past that I've had, but I'm very, very particular on the money part of our business and where it comes from and where it goes. All right. Now, I told you that I saved my money. We purchased our first school. I was excited. I was eager. I was anxious to get in there. Looking back now, we were not ready. All right. I did not have enough money in savings. I thought I knew what I was doing, but it doesn't matter how many years that you work in this business. You may think that you know everything, but when it's your signature on the bottom right-hand corner of that checkbook, it changes everything. And I realized I knew very little, all right, especially about operating a business and being a business owner. I look back now whenever we bought that first school, and I don't know how we made it. I seriously don't know how we made it. We made it on a prayer is what we did. Prayer and luck, all right, is how we did it. So now, as I've continued to grow our company and we now have 5 schools, we have learned something every step of the way. And definitely the way we acquire properties now is very, very different than how, we acquired that first property. We did not get a good deal. We got very, very taken advantage of. But again, I was eager, I was inexperienced, and I just wanted in. And we got it. All right, so I'm going to share some of the mistakes that I've made down, along the way, and what I've learned from those mistakes and things that I will never do again. As we kind of go through today's course on fiscal fitness. Now, one thing that I always like to talk about, and I'm sure that a lot of you will agree with me here, is that, most of us that are in an administrative role in licensed childcare and after-school programs never went to school to be a business leader. All right, you may have gone to school for education, for classroom, curriculum and cognitive skills, but very, very few people that work in this industry actually have a business background. Maybe you did something business related in a previous life. But when it comes to running a business, a lot of us don't have those skills. So we have to learn them along the way. And I constantly have to remind directors and owners of early childhood programs that you are running a business. And if you look at your profit loss statements, you're running a multi-million-dollar business. I want y'all to kind of think about that. If you have access to your profit loss statements, all right, for your organization, take a look at that profit loss statement, all right, and look how much revenue you're bringing in each year, all right? And a lot of you are probably bringing in $1.2, $1.5 million in revenue. You're running a multi-million-dollar business. Now, that might be scary for some people. You're like, what? I thought I was just operating this child care center and taking care of kids and teaching them social skills. No, multi-million-dollar business. So my first question to you is, are you running your business or is your business running you? And that's a good question that you've got to ask yourself, all right? Am I letting the business run me, or are you running the business? First thing you've got to do is you've got to grab hold of the reins, and you've got to be the business leader, and you're in control of that, all right? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I've talked to a lot of people, hundreds and hundreds of people during this pandemic, and we've had a lot of conversations about I wasn't financially prepared for this type of significant event. Well, none of us were, all right? None of us were prepared for a significant event of this magnitude, all right? But you're always going to have significant events. And, and those of you that have been in my previous classes, we've talked about preparing for these significant events, all right? We got to look at it from a different perspective nowadays. Now, those of you that might be joining me for the first time on a director's workshop, welcome. We're glad you're here. And by the way, I have posted my spring 2021 schedule on my website. So 2021 is already scheduled and posted, just future reference, a little preview right there. But those of you that this is your first time, we do ask that you be fully focused on today's webinar and be free from other duties if possible, so that the assumption is that you're actually sitting in a classroom with me like we normally do on Fridays. But that way you can enhance your professional development and be humble and hungry for that knowledge and grow your program. All right? There will be an opportunity for you to get a certificate of completion for today's webinar. So at the end of today's session, a link for a worksheet will be posted on Facebook. You're going to click on the applicable link, and you're going to answer 10 questions for me about today's workshop, and then I will email you a certificate of completion. There is a $15 fee for your 3 hours of instructor-led training. I was just reading Cheryl's comment about don't let the tail wag the dog. That's absolutely true. All right, so I am going to ask, though, that when you complete your worksheet this afternoon, that your worksheet is completed based on the material that we're covering in today's webinar. I'm starting to have a little bit of an issue with people that are answering questions based on their internet searches and not off the material that is covered in class. And that's concerning to me that people are not watching the full video. So, it took a lot for me to do these virtual webinars. I like for y'all to be in person, so there you go. So, there is going to be a lot of opportunity for you to participate today, because in order for this to be instructor-led, I need your participation. So, my first question to y'all, What are your biggest expenses in your business? So the schools that you were operating, if you could type that into your little chat screen here on Facebook Live, someone share with us, what are your biggest expenses in your current business? And you can answer that as of today, because our expenses, our biggest expenses, have changed from February of 2020 to right now. All right. So I've got Shannon telling me that her biggest expense is payroll. Absolutely, that's number one. All right. Typically, the national average for payroll is 50% of your income goes into your payroll, and we're going to talk about that later on too. Some programs run about 55%. We're starting to see the national average inch up more to 60% on payroll now, just because we're having to add more staff due to lower ratio in group sizes based on executive orders, staff that are having to run children from the front door back to the classroom, etc. So our payroll costs are actually going up, all right? And we're going to talk about that a little well. Karen says supplies. Yes, Karen, gold star for you. This is one of the items that typically your consumable items is not something I would put in your top 5 biggest expenses. Now it's creeping up there because we are having to buy more chemicals, your PPE equipment, and so we're starting to see those consumable supplies inch their way up there. I see a comment of your mortgage or your lease. Yes, that's typically going to be your second or third largest expense is your facility. Whether you're buying your program or you're leasing your building, that is a big expense, all right? And we're going to talk about that later on today as well. Linda says taxes. Yes, that absolutely is in your top 5 biggest expenses. For those of us that are a for-profit program, we have to pay property taxes, and depending on your location and the size of your facility, they eat your lunch, all right? I hope that you are fighting your property taxes every year, all right? We do that with all of our properties, and it's amazing how much money we save every year off of that. But the property taxes are a killer. We're going to talk about that just a little bit too, all right? So I see some more comments about cleaning supplies, hand sanitizer, paper towels, a lot of that consumable stuff. I typically use washable dishes, spoons and plates and cups. But again, with the executive orders in place, we need to be using disposable items. So that's added to my consumable expenses, having to buy disposable plates and spoons and cups. It's a lot of money that literally goes into the trash at the end of every day. So there you go. All right, so we basically kind of listed out the top 5 biggest expenses: your payroll, your facility, your property taxes in some of our situations, your supplies. Food is something else I would put in that category. Those of you that are preparing and serving food. And then your other big expense that you've got right here is your insurance. Wow, insurance is a lot of money these days. We just did our renewal for our insurance, and I had to go to happy hour afterwards. But I couldn't drink too much because I couldn't afford it after renewing my insurance. Just kidding, I did. All right, so we're going to talk today about determining your cost of care. And I'm going to go through the whole process of determining your cost of care. How much is each child costing you in your program? We're going to kind of do that in detail, and I have a worksheet that I'm going to share with you at the end of today's session that's going to help you determine your cost of care. Those of you that have never done a cost of care analysis, you definitely need to do it. It's a very educational experience. If you haven't done one recently, okay, again, you're a little behind. Like we've just mentioned, our operating cost has changed dramatically during the pandemic. So that's definitely going to change our cost of care. I'm willing to bet that a lot of us, after doing our cost of care this fall, is going to have to increase your tuition. All right? The writing is all over the wall. So, there's a couple of benefits of doing a cost of care analysis. It's to determine your tuition rates. It's to determine your marketing plans. All right, what age groups am I going to market? Which age groups am I not going to market? It also is to analyze your potential growth, all right, and kind of determine your goals. I also like it because it forces you to break apart your profit loss statement and to look at each line item to see where you can save money or where you're spending your money the smartest, all right? And then, especially new directors, I always encourage new directors to do a cost of care analysis because it really makes you understand the importance of collecting tuition. You cannot run a successful and quality program if people are not paying you. And in our industry, because we are caring and we love our families and kids, we tend to get very relaxed when it comes to collecting payments, and we tend to let people manipulate us with their sad stories and allow them not to pay. Well, you cannot run a multi-million-dollar business without people paying you, all right? You have to tell that parent they have to pay to play, all right? And after you do your cost of care, you get it, all right? You get it right there. So, one of the questions I have for you is, why do we collect payments from parents? And I want you to ask yourself that. Why do we collect payment? Well, we are providing a service for a fee. All right. Now, yes, we're here to care for the children, to educate the children, to be that child's healthy attachment figure, but we are providing a service for a fee. Whether it's the parent paying us or the state of Texas paying us, for those of you that accept subsidy children. And I tell you, during this pandemic, our subsidy families have been lifesavers. All right, I never thought I would say that in my career, but I've never been so happy to have so many subsidized children, because the extra money that we have gotten and the opportunities that we have gotten from our subsidy programs has been a lifesaver. So, very, very grateful for that. I want you to ask yourself, when is payment due? All right? So if y'all want to type that into your chat screen, when do you expect your parents to pay you? All right? Let me see what kind of answers we get on here on when payment is due for the child's tuition. Okay? So a lot of people, the industry average is weekly, and typically Monday by noon is what Nicole is telling me. Yep, that's pretty average right now. You want to make sure that you're collecting payment before services are provided, all right? Before services are provided. If you allow parents to pay on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every single day that you provide a service and you're not getting paid for it is a day that you're at risk of losing that money, all right? I like those of you that tuition is due on Friday the week before. That's what I really like. Now, I see Colleen is saying that her tuition is due on the 1st of the month. All right, so she is in a very blessed situation where she can charge a monthly tuition and parents pay for the entire month up front. I love that. Unfortunately, that's not realistic for some programs, all right? Now, if you're able to charge a monthly tuition and collect it on the 1st of the month, high five to you. Some people, depending on the area that they operate, you're lucky to get that payment each week from that parent, all right? There you go. So I see Tana saying Friday for the next week. Very smart, very smart. I like it right there. So, and if you can automatically draft that tuition out of that parent's bank account, that's even better. because then you don't have to chase them down, and none of us went to school to be a debt collector. All right? None of us should be doing that. That's not in the job description. So if we can hit a button and draft it out of their bank account, that's better right there. But I want you to really ask yourself, when is payment due? And then, are you allowing the parent to come and you provide services without payment? And I want you to really look at the risk you're taking when you allow that. All right? Because that's money lost. And especially when you do your cost of care, you're going to realize that you're already losing money on some children. And then when they don't pay you, it's even a bigger loss. All right? How many of you give discounts? All right? And you give a discount on your tuition. I want you to really analyze these discounts. What are you getting out of it? Are you just giving money away to your families? Or are you getting something out of that discount? There needs to be a yin for the yang, all right? If I'm giving a family a discount, there's got to be some benefit for me, all right? We don't just give away money because we give away money. So I really want you to look at your discounts and analyze that. Now, the most popular discount we see in our industry is a sibling discount. So if there's multiple children in the family, then you give a 10% discount off of the oldest child. I would call that a benefit because you're getting 2 kids for 1 enrollment, all right? Or 3 kids in a family, whatnot. So there's a yin for the yang right there. Some of us give like a public school teachers a discount or city employees a discount. All right, what benefit are you getting for that? Well, these people typically are our biggest advocates. And so when we look at marketing our program and word of mouth, all right, we really rely on these people to be the ringleaders right there. So there might be a benefit in that sense, all right? Of course, with subsidy discounts, you know, the benefit right there is that you got guaranteed payment, all right? You don't have to worry about not getting that payment in most cases. You know, but then you've got your grant opportunities, your possible food program opportunities, those type of situations that you may not get in return. I see Tana is saying no discounts. I like that. All right. I can already tell she's a smart business operator right there. That's the second good comment she's made. All right. But, you know, this is the new error right here, y'all. When you start looking at forecasting and planning for early education programs, the days of discounts are about to go away. The tuition is what it is, and that's what the parent's going to pay. When you look at the amount of money that we're giving away in discounts, you're going to be shocked at the end of the year, all right? And then really ask yourself, what did I get in return, all right? But the new trend is that discounts are going away, all right? The first discount that we're seeing going away rapidly are absent credits, all right? I don't know how many of y'all have put children through college, but when you pay your child's college tuition, you pay that tuition whether they go to school or not. If they party too much and miss a couple of classes, you don't get to take 50% off of your tuition, all right? So, you know, tuition is due whether they attend or not. That's what we're starting to see in our industry as well, all right? Especially when we see the rising cost of care and the rising operating costs, we're seeing those type of discounts really slip away. Employee discounts is the other one, all right? And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole because we're not here to talk about benefits and those type of things, but you really got to look at, if you're giving an employee a child care discount, what is the employees that don't have children getting that's equal to that benefit, all right? Because then you run into a morale issue right there. Yes. So, all right. So, you know, I had this whole idea in my head of things that I was going to do and say during today's presentation. But, one of them is I want y'all to get out your dictionary. If you have a good old-fashioned dictionary out there, grab it. Most of you probably have it on your phone right there. But I want y'all to look up the word commitment in the dictionary. What does the word commitment mean? All right? And I want you to really take this and look at your parents that enroll their children in your program. And when a parent enrolls their child in your program, you're asking them to make a commitment, not only to your school, but to their child. Their child needs consistency. And I'm stressing on this because these days, even prior to the pandemic, all right, people have lost the meaning of commitment. All right, we don't know what commitment means anymore. We are willing to, grab up all of our toys and go play somewhere else really fast. When the world doesn't go our way, we're just going to bail and go somewhere else. Think about your parents. I just did a workshop last month on generational leadership. And we talked about, the different generations and each generation's characteristics and how you lead, different generations. And you look at your boomers, your baby boomers, and your builders, especially your builder generation, they typically had one job their entire life. My father had one job his entire life. They weren't people that the second the world didn't go their way, they just quit and found another job. They stuck with it. And even the baby boomers were very good at staying with one job unless a better career opportunity came up. But they definitely had a lot less turnover. I'm saying this because these two generations understood what commitment meant. All right? And then from then on, you started seeing the lack of commitment. Well, when you're enrolling a family, I need that family to make a commitment to ensure my financial success. When I'm doing forecasting and planning, I have to be able to trust that that money is going to continue to come in. All right? And when that commitment isn't there and your money is up and down, it's very hard to run a successful business. All right? Now, with the pandemic, it's been a little bit difficult, but have you had some parents that were quitters? Yeah, we have. We have some parents that have left us high and dry. By the way, on your worksheet, I'm going to tell you when there is a worksheet question. So you might want to take notes and be ready to answer some of these questions. But one of your worksheet questions is going to be, what does commitment mean in your school? All right, when it comes to the relationship between the business and the client, what does commitment mean to you? All right, we're looking for long-term commitments, not just for the business, but for the child. Michelle said, even their commitment to marriage. Yeah, I have to agree with that too. We've had a lot of conversation about this all of a sudden recently. I don't know what's going on or what's in the air, but the commitment to marriage and what that means. And you get to a point where you kind of cross a line that, breaking up is just not an option. And whatever issue you're going through right now, you're going to get through it. And so, the divorce or separation isn't even an issue. Now, it takes a lot to get to that point, Off topic right now, but there's a new book out right now called Relationship Grit, Grit, Relationship Grit. And it's written by John Gordon and his wife. I strongly recommend you picking up that book and you and your spouse reading it. All right? It's very, very, very good, and I think they did a fabulous job. And it's really cool because for each chapter, it's written from the husband's perspective and it's written from the wife's perspective. So it's a pretty cool book. All right. Next question right now, and again, you're going to see this on your workshop. Why are your customers leaving you? Okay, now if you want to go back before the pandemic, you can answer these questions, but even during the pandemic, all right, why are your customers leaving you? And I need y'all to be open and honest with this question, all right? You can't hide behind the truth, all right? You need to be open and honest on why your customers are leaving you. And if you want to start a spreadsheet or start a journal on every family that leaves your program and the reason why they're leaving your program, I encourage you to do that. And what we need to look at is we need to identify trends. Do we have quality issues? Do we have communication issues? Are we not connecting with the family? Are we not holding up to our end of the commitment? Are we not delivering what we promised to that family? All right? And we've seen this, definitely during the pandemic, we have seen this, is that when that family is dedicated and committed to our schools, and we have shared values with that family, they stick with us, all right? And many, many families continued to pay their tuition during the pandemic, even though their child wasn't in attendance. And even right now, when we're faced with mandatory quarantining because a child has possibly been exposed or a family member has possibly been exposed, and we've got policies that they have to be out for 10 to 14 days when they've been potentially exposed. We're starting to see parents that, no problem, I completely understand, and they pay their tuition without any question. That's commitment, all right? Because they're understanding that we're running a business, all right? I've got to run my business. Do you want my doors to be open next month? All right, that's what you kind of have to look at it right there. Or, like I said, do you have customers that are just quitters? The moment the world doesn't go their way, they're out of here. And we need to identify those quitters, and we need to really look at where we need to strengthen that relationship. So one of the questions that I want you to ask yourself, all right, some self-reflecting right here, is why are your customers leaving? Really, why are they leaving? And you've got to be honest right there. One of my mentors early on in my career taught me this: there are no friends in business, all right? There are no friends in business. Don't ever go into business with friends either, by the way. But, and that's hard being early educators because, part of our job is to connect with these families and be an advocate for the family. But sometimes we become too friendly with them, and then when I do have to collect tuition, it becomes an issue. Well, I thought you were my friend. I thought you would understand that I blew all my money this weekend and I can't pay tuition on, Monday. Nope, got to have that money, all right? We kind of keep that in mind right there. We're going to talk about identifying static cost and really managing that static cost and reducing that static cost. That is a big part of your bottom line right there. The other big recommendation to you, especially planning for the next year, you want to avoid as much debt as possible, all right? So I really want y'all to look at any outstanding loans that you have, any credit card balances that you have, and a big focus for 2021 is for you to get rid of that debt, all right? One thing we have seen during the pandemic, during the hurricanes, all right, a lot of these big significant events that we've had over the last, several years, businesses that have been able to survive are the businesses with very little or no debt. All right? If you've got a lot of debt in your business, you're more likely to fail. Okay? So the more debt, the more you're at risk. All right? I have typically really tried at the beginning, especially at the beginning of growing my business, to have as very little amount of debt as possible. All right. I was the type of person that we saved our money and and then pay cash. And realize that when you pay cash, you typically get a better deal. All right? But if I needed a new bus, if I needed a new piece of playground equipment, if I needed some new furniture for the classroom, I would save our money, put a plan in place, all right, save that money, and then pay cash for it, all right? Because, especially being a new business owner and, really, really trying to build the business, you want to keep as little debt as possible. Now, when you do hit that significant event, like I said, and enrollment drops for whatever reason, the less debt, the better off you are. Negotiate your interest rates too. So if you do have debt, so maybe you did get a loan for furniture, you did get a loan for a vehicle, all right? Really pay attention to your interest rates, and when you have the opportunity to negotiate that, do it. And you would be surprised right now, especially with the pandemic, how many banks are willing to renegotiate, all right? So, but you got to be aware of that right there too. As our business has grown and we've got 5 schools now, we have accrued a little bit of debt, with some furniture loans and new vehicles and some things like that. But I'm working on a plan right now to try to eliminate that debt as quick as possible, because definitely during the pandemic we've learned that lesson on how hard it is to stay afloat when you've got that debt. I see several of you telling me, Colleen and Shannon, that y'all have 0 debt. Once again, I knew that y'all were smart, all right? Smart people right there. We also live in this world of points, all right? And a lot of us do a lot of our business transactions with credit cards, all right? And with those credit cards, you're probably earning points. What are you doing with those points? All right, ask yourself that. Take advantage of those points. You can turn those points into cash. You can turn those points into gift cards that you can then give your employees as incentives. You can use those points for additional equipment in your program, all right? So, take advantage of those point situations and analyze that. We typically do a large portion of our expenses in my business with American Express, our American Express cards, and they have wonderful points, and then we get those points in return, let them add up a little bit, and then we get to do some fabulous things with them, all right? I'm just kind of going through some bullet points, and then we're going to get to cost of care here in just about a couple of minutes. Another big piece of advice that a mentor gave me that has really, really stuck with me. And man, right now in the pandemic, this is probably more important than ever. Not all money is good money. Okay? Not all money is good money. And if you have a parent, a client that is just really giving you a hard time and not committed to your school, and you're having to spend a lot of your quality time on this one customer, and every minute that you spend on that customer is time that you're not spending with the ones that are committed, all right? So you might see that getting rid of that one customer gives you the opportunity to gain a lot more, all right? So I'm in a big weed and feed phase right now, not only with customers, but with employees too, all right? We're going to weed out the negative and feed the positive. You're either on board and you're committed and dedicated, or you got to go, all right? And, that's a big topic of conversation in our world right now. Last big bullet point before we get to cost of care. Let's take a deep breath on this one. Follow the rules, all right? We have minimum standards. We have the health protocols right now. We have the CDC guidelines, but that's not all. We also have Texas Workforce Commission and, employment laws and the Texas payday law that we've got to follow. And then the list goes on and on. I've got a training that I do on, federal, state, and local agencies that we have to satisfy. Most importantly, when I say follow the rules, follow your own rules, all right? Your parent handbook, your employee handbook. What are your policies? Stick to them. The reason why I'm stressing this is that legal expenses or fines and penalties will bankrupt you quicker than anything. We got a lot of risk on our shoulders right now. And even coming out of the pandemic, I think we're going to see the greater risk after the pandemic, not during it, all right? But it's going to be the aftermath that we're going to start seeing a lot of legal issues, all right? Legal expenses can cripple you like that, all right? And by the way, this is a worksheet question, all right? What will legal expenses, fines, and penalties do to you? They're going to bankrupt you. So we want to avoid those type of expenses at all costs. And you do that by following the rules, okay? Most importantly, your rules. So that's very important right there. And of course, the other thing that we're really starting to see, and when we're talking about planning for a successful 2021, a big trend we're seeing is that your insurance companies are now looking at your compliance history, and your premiums, all right, could be based on your compliance history with licensing. And if you've got a lot of high-risk deficiencies, they're going to increase your insurance premium or potentially deny you. I was just talking to an insurance agent about 2.5 weeks ago, and she was telling me of an insurance company that denied coverage for a school because they had too many deficiencies with licensing. All right? So again, follow the rules because it has financial impact on you. Y'all know that old saying, what you don't know can't hurt you? Y'all know that's a big fat lie, right? What you don't know can hurt you, and it can hurt you bad. And here's one thing that I have learned, over the last 15 years of traveling around this state and around this country, doing workshops and seminars and coaching. There's a lot of people out there that are breaking the law, but it's not intentional, all right? They just didn't know they were supposed to be doing this or that, all right? I just had a conversation with a school last week where the school was not paying a salaried exempt employee the right amount of money, and they were below the threshold. So they're at risk of a wage claim. Not only are they at risk of a wage claim, but they may be, held liable to go back and pay this employee for the last 7 years with interest for the money that they were not paying them. So, that's a huge financial hit right there. Now, this employer didn't do it intentionally, all right? She wasn't intentionally breaking the law. She was just unaware that, the salary threshold had changed and, was not educated. So, know your stuff and make sure that you've got resources to keep you up to date on those type of things. All right. Get your pen and paper ready and get ready to take some notes. I'm going to go over the steps of doing a cost of care analysis. All right. Now, I have a wonderful spreadsheet that I created that all you need to do is fill in your numbers and it will do all of the calculations for you. I do not have that posted on my website yet. I took it down, all right? I want you to pay attention to my presentation today. And I knew that if I told you this Excel spreadsheet was out there, you would immediately go and download it, and you would be playing with numbers for the next 2 hours instead of watching me. So as soon as we are done with today's seminar, Later on today, I will post this spreadsheet on my website, and I'll put something on Facebook to let you know it's there. But it's a really cool worksheet that you just need to plug in your numbers and it will do all the math for you. It's still going to take you time because you got to do it for each child. All right, but it's a wonderful activity. So, determining your cost of care. Okay, the first thing you need to do is you're going to break this down by classroom. All right, you can do it by classroom or you can do it by age group. I recommend you do it by classroom. All right, and the first thing you're going to determine are what are your payroll expenses for that particular classroom. So you're going to take, let's say I'm doing an infant room, infant A, all right? You're going to take infant A, you're going to look at the employees that work in that classroom and what are their gross wages for the week, all right? Gross wages, not net. We want gross. So before, deductions and all that kind of stuff. You're going to do that. You're going to determine what are your gross wages for that classroom for the week. And then you're going to divide it by the total number of children currently enrolled. All right? And then divide it by 5 for 5 days a week, assuming that you're open 5 days a week. If you're in a program that's only open 3 days a week, you're going to divide it by 3. All right? Most of us are open 5. But you're going to take basically your gross wages for that classroom, determine how much those employees' salaries are costing per child per day, is how you want to drill it down. This is why I recommend doing it by classroom, all right, because your classrooms are going to be staffed based on the child-staff ratio. So your gross wages are going to look different, all right, for each classroom. When you're doing this, I also don't want you to forget about non-classroom hours. So if you have a situation where you're giving your employees planning time or preparing and concluding time, training, all right, the time that they're spending in their training, all right, you want to make sure you include all of this. You also, somewhere in your cost of care, you need to make sure that you're including your non-classroom employees, all right? So, for example, the director, the assistant director, the cook, the maintenance guy, all right? Whoever you've got in your world, you've got to make sure that their wages are being put somewhere, all right? Otherwise, your cost of care is not going to come out right. And those are big salaries, right? Because all of you, you're making the big money, right? Just kidding. Now, I recommend that your salaried individuals, so those non-classroom people, we're going to put those in our operating cost. That's the way I do it, as I put it in my operating cost, not in my classroom cost. That helps me because when I do a cost of care, I really want to see each individual classroom and those wages. So there you go. And like I said, the spreadsheet that I will share with you after today's seminar, there's an opportunity for you to put each teacher, their gross wages, and how many children are currently enrolled, and it'll do the math for you. All right? Make sure that when you're doing this, you're doing this based on how many children do you have enrolled today, not what you're forecasting, not what your capacity is. All right? If you're going off of a forecast number or capacity, this is not going to be helpful. I need to know what my operating costs are today based on the current number of children. All right? So that's very, very important. Now, the next part is your operating costs. So this is where you are going to have access to your profit loss statement, your income statement, whatever it is that your CPA is doing your taxes off on. All right? But, if you're the owner, you've got that. Most of the time the director has access to that. But, whoever your permit holder is going to have to be able to release this information to you for it to be effective. Typically, that's not a problem. All right? But you want to, once again, determine your operating cost per child per day. All right? I got a question. Stephanie says this is geared towards centers, but can it be done for in-home as well? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a very, very good idea, Stephanie, for you, because yours is going to look a little different, but very, very important for you. Diane is asking about floaters. Oh, y'all, I'm working on a 10 at 10 webinar just on the importance of floaters because I think they're one of the most underappreciated individuals in our program. Those floaters have a critical role in the success of your school, and the responsibility of a floater is 10 times greater than other employees in your program. They have to know all different age groups, all different skill sets, all different domains, all right? There's a lot of responsibility to being a floater. I even think they deserve higher pay because there's so much more that they have to know. But anyways, I'm working on that workshop. I would add your floaters to your operating expenses since they do kind of go from classroom to classroom. I would put them in your operating expenses with your non-classroom people. So director, assistant director, maintenance person, cook. You can put your floaters in that category as well. Good question right there, because they are a benefit to every room. So, right now, it's October 16th. This is a good time to do your cost of care because we just ended the month of September. Not only that, but we ended third quarter. So it's a good opportunity for you to take your third quarter results, and then use that to create your operating cost. The only thing in there is that third quarter has, July and August, which are typically summer months. But, still, you're going to get the general idea. This year, again, it was a different story because the kids had a 6-month-long spring break. So we had those kids for a long time right there. But basically, get your operating costs. So let's say, for example, my operating costs were $40,000 for the month. Plus my salaries, add another, $20,000. So we're looking at $60,000 for the month. Divide that by the total number of children that you're caring for. And I like to take that number, if you're just taking a month, multiply that by 12, because there's 12 months in a year, divide it by 52 weeks, and then divide it by 5 days a week that you're open. So take your monthly operating cost times 12, divided by 52, divided by 5. The reason why I do it that way is because not all weeks, or not all months have 4 weeks, all right? Every third month you have a 5th week, all right? So you want to make sure that you include that extra week in there. When you take your monthly cost, multiply it by 12, that's going to give your total operating cost for the entire year. Divide that by 52, divide that by the number of days you're open, 5, okay? Now, if you're in a program that you close during the summertime, or you close at Christmas, all right, you need to look at your operating model, and you may need to take those weeks out, okay? Especially if you're not collecting tuition during that time, okay? So typically June, July, August, some of you might not be collecting tuition because you're closed. We would definitely, instead of multiplying by 12, we would multiply by 9, all right? Christmas and spring break, you're probably still collecting tuition for that time. All right. Once you determine your operating cost per child per day, all right, you're going to add that operating cost to your payroll cost. So remember, each classroom, we determined our payroll cost per child per day. We have a number now for each classroom. So then for each child, you're going to add that payroll cost per child per day plus the operating cost per child per day, and that's going to give you your total cost of care. All right, so it is costing me, $65 per day to care for this one child. All right, you'll determine that. The next thing you want to do is you're going to look at how much money you're being paid for that child to be in care. So, let's say, for example, you charge $200 a week. All right, I'm using easy money right here. But you're charging $200 a week for that child, and that's how much mom and dad are paying you, is $200 a week. So $200 a week, I'm getting $40 a day. All right, $40 a day. Now, in the example I just gave you, our cost of care was $65 a day. But I'm only collecting $40. Uh-oh. That child, I'm losing $25 a day on that particular child. And just a heads up, you're going to notice this. There are some children that you're actually paying them. You're paying for them to be there. All right? They're costing you money. You're not making money on them. And whenever you break your payment down, how much are you getting paid for that child to be in your program? Make sure that you include any discounts. So if you are giving a sibling discount, you're giving a staff discount, you're giving a subsidy discount, all right? The number that we're going to be using is how much are you actually getting paid. So that's why when you see on the worksheet that I'm going to share with you, there's a line for each child. So you're going to list each child in the classroom and how much are you being paid for that particular child. And the number is going to be different for each kid because not all parents pay the same amount of money. All right, because there may be a sibling discount in there. There may be a subsidy discount in there, whatever it may be. This is where you're going to have a lot of aha moments. Okay, wow, we really need to reconsider our discounts. We really need to talk about, is this discount worth it? Because now I'm losing money on that kid. And am I getting a benefit in return? All right, those of you that take subsidized children, all right, you're going to really see some negative numbers right here. All right. There you go. So, like I said, this is a little bit of a process. I do have some instructions that I can send you if you want a step-by-step on determining cost of care. I actually have a pre-recorded webinar on my website, timthetrainer.com. You can go to online trainings. And you can see that it gives you a little bit more detail. But like I said, at the end of today's session, I will post that spreadsheet that I created to help you determine your cost of care. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the course today, you need to make sure that you do a cost of care based on your operation today. Because, like we said at the beginning, our consumable supplies have gone up. Our staffing has gone up. All right, so the cost of operating our business during the pandemic has really increased. So you need to make sure that your tuition is based on your current needs. All right, and that's very important right there. I see someone commenting on Facebook that they did not register for this course. Guess what? Nobody did. All right. You're here. All you have to do is log into Facebook and start watching, and you're all set. There is no pre-registration. But there will be an opportunity for you to earn a certificate by completing a worksheet at the end. And speaking of worksheets, here is a worksheet question for you. So those of you that are taking notes so that you can successfully complete your worksheet at the end of the course, what are the benefits of doing a cost of care analysis? So if y'all want to type in, I want to see what you're thinking right now. By doing this cost of care analysis, what do you foresee the benefit being? What are you going to learn from this? All right. If y'all want to type that in, what are you going to learn? What are the benefits of doing a cost of care analysis on your program? All right. While y'all are typing that in, I'm going to answer a question that came up. How do we offset credit card fees? Lisa, I have to, agree with you. When we talked about some of the top 5 expenses in our business, credit card and bank fees are really creeping up there. You need to make sure that you pay attention to your credit card processing terms and conditions. So whatever you're using Tuition Express or you have a bank that's doing your credit card processing, you need to pay attention to the terms and conditions of that agreement. Most likely you're going to see that you cannot charge the customer an additional fee for credit card processing. That's typically a violation of the terms and conditions that you have with the processor. You also need to check whatever state you're in and whether there are state laws prohibiting a business from charging a customer more money for using a credit card. All right. So, but the biggest thing is the credit card processor, their terms and conditions is what you want to look at. All right. Instead of saying I'm going to charge you an additional fee for using your credit card, you might want to consider saying we're going to give you a discount for paying cash. All right. And then up your tuition, 3%. And then that way you're still getting what you need, but then you're covering and you're offsetting those credit card rates. All right, so the benefit of doing a cost of care analysis. Yes, it's going to help you determine how much tuition you should be charging. All right. Most of the time we just call around town. Hey, how much do you charge for infants? How much do you charge for 3-year-olds? And that's still important. I still think you should do that, but that should not be how you base your tuition. All right. Your tuition should be based on your cost of care. You need to be bringing in enough money to pay your bills. All right. It's going to help you realize that you are losing money on some customers. So maybe you shouldn't open that 3rd infant room. All right. You may think it sounds like a good idea to open a 3rd infant room, but you're opening another classroom that you're losing money on. All right. It may help you in that situation. Help you understand where we need to cut expenses. I see that popping up quite a few times right there. Where we need to lower, some costs. We need to do some renegotiating out there. All right. There's a conversation going on now. Found out where you're losing the money. All right. Those outstanding expenses, that outstanding money. How important it is to collect that money right there. Awesome. Good responses. So that is going to be one of your worksheet questions is what is the benefit of doing a cost of care analysis? All right. Determine your tuition rates. Okay. And what we really would like to see is that you have a $3 to $5 profit per child per day. So when you're taking your cost of care and you kind of determine what is the average cost of care for that classroom per child, what we would really like to see is a $3 to $5 profit per day, if possible. All right. Now, probably in your infant toddler room, you're not going to get that. All right, because then your tuition would be so expensive, your parents can't afford it. Or your subsidy, you just know you're not going to get it from your subsidized families. All right, so we're going to have to offset that somewhere else. But 3 to 5 is a healthy program. Okay, if you can make that happen right there. It's going to help you determine your tuition policies. We talked earlier about when is tuition due and how long are you letting your parents go without paying. You're basically going to see that every day that I don't collect payment for that child, this is the exact dollar amount of how much I could potentially lose. All right? Because it might be that parent goes until Thursday without paying, and then you say, if you don't come, if you don't pay tomorrow, you can't drop off your child, and then you'll probably never see the family again. And you just got stuck with providing care for 4 days that you will never get payment for. All right? So, I see directors, after they do a cost of care, get really tough on their tuition policies because you see the big picture right there. I see a comment that, doing this helps you know where you stand so you're better prepared for the future. Thank you. Thank you. That is a perfect answer, and that's the reason why we're here today. is to successfully plan for 2021. We cannot successfully plan for 2021 until we know what today's cost of care is. All right? So there you go. All right. The other thing that I love about doing a cost of care is that it helps you determine your marketing priorities. So, for example, you will very rarely see me create marketing material for infants and toddlers. Why would I spend thousands of dollars marketing my program, marketing a classroom that I lose money on? All right? You're going to market the classrooms that you make money on, which is typically your 4 and 5-year-olds. All right? That's where your marketing dollars need to be spent. A lot of times after doing this activity, people, will say, well, why do we even take infants? If we're losing so much money on infants, why do we even have them? Well, there is a benefit, all right? There's really 3 reasons why we take infants in our program. Number 1 is that they typically bring a sibling, or sometimes will bring a sibling that may be a profitable child, all right? Number 2, they'll eventually grow up to be a profitable child. And number 3, a service to the community. All right, that's typically why we do it. But I know a lot of you that are out there don't start taking children until 18 months or 24 months, and that's typically due to the liability, the risk, and the fact that they lose money. All right, there you go. One thing that I want y'all to do, when we're successfully planning for 2021. Is I really want y'all to ask yourself, what does your school stand for? All right? How do you want to be known in the community? All right? What do you stand for? What are your beliefs, your values? All right? What is your mission? And I think that's very important for you to lay out those items. All right? What do you stand for? What is your philosophy? What is your mission? How do you want to be known in your community? You want to lay that out during the financial planning process. I would even put it at the top of your desk. And when you're planning for your financial future, you want that mission and that vision and that philosophy right there in front of you. We've already talked today about cutting expenses and how we can cut expenses. You don't want to cut anything that will take you away from your beliefs and your values and your mission. All right? Don't lose your integrity to save a dime. Now, that's been tough this year because we have struggled with the pandemic. All right? And we have been punched in the gut and we've been distracted a lot. All right? I was just having a conversation last week that how virtual learners and having to support the virtual learners has been a huge distraction for the business. And I have to agree with that 1,000%. That's why I want that mission, those values, that philosophy, that belief right there in front of you while you do this. Okay? We don't want to lose sight of what we stand for. All right? And I have definitely learned that when you are focused on your mission and your values and your beliefs, and you don't lose that focus, all of this stuff that we're talking about today will magically fall in place. It's pretty amazing right there. Okay? Yes, Jamie, this is being recorded today and it will be posted later on for those of you that have missed part of it or you want to go back and rewatch part of it. This is being recorded and will be posted for future reference. So there you go. All right. So this is a lot of information, isn't it? Some of your heads are kind of spinning right now. But it's good stuff. It's good stuff. All right. Remember, you run the business. The business doesn't run you. And doing your cost of care is going to put you in charge of the business. Okay? So that's why I started with that part of it right there. All right. Let's talk a little bit about income and, how much money that we are bringing in. Now that we've done our cost of care analysis and we have determined that we may or may not be charging the right tuition rates, and we may need to increase our tuition rates. The industry experts out there are forecasting that most child care centers in the United States of America in 2021 will most likely have a 5 to 7% increase in their tuition this year. All right, so across the entire United States, that's what's being forecasted. So if you go up 3%, you go up 5% on your tuition January 1st, you're not doing anything out of the ordinary. The industry experts are expecting 5 to 7% increase in tuition in 2021 because, like we've already mentioned a couple of times, we have a huge increase in our operating costs due to consumable supplies and staffing. All right, are the two biggest areas right there. So there you go. So we're going to look at our tuition. We're going to really look at additional fees that we're charging. Some of the additional fees that we charge, so your late payment, your late pickup, those type of fees are gravy. All right, and when you're doing your planning and forecasting, I would not include any of those additional fees. So your late pickup, your late payment, that's just kind of gravy for you, because in a perfect world, your parents are paying on time, and in a perfect world, they're picking up on time, they're calling and notifying you when their child is out. In a perfect world, you shouldn't have these additional fees. Even registration fees. Now, if you charge an annual registration fee or supply fee or activity fee, whatever you call it in your world, if it's something that's done annually, definitely you can budget for that and you can plan for that income. But new families coming in, sometimes we go, oh, we're gonna forecast that we're gonna enroll 5 new kids a month. So I'm gonna put $500 in my budget for registration fees. The goal is to have a full program with no turnover, and you have a waiting list. So it's kind of like the goal is that you don't have the opportunity to collect additional registration fees because you've got committed customers that are staying with you in a full program. Then you wouldn't have the opportunity to get those additional registration fees. The goal is to reduce the amount of turnover you have in your program. All right? And we're going to do that by commitment. So, I would just take caution when you're doing your planning and forecasting to put a lot of money in there on registration fees. All right? And the fact that we just don't know what 2021 is going to look like yet. All right? So my suggestion to you, look at your current enrollment, okay? How many children do you currently have in your program? And let's plan on that being it for the next year, all right? So between now and October 2021, whatever you've got right now is what I suggest you plan that you're going to have, okay? Because we just don't know what the future is going to bring. Now, if you do increase enrollment, you start getting families back, that's going to be positive. But when we talk about planning for a successful 2021, we kind of need to expect the worst. All right? So we're going to make some planning and forecasting and changes based on what we have right now and then go from there. Take out your discounts. So we've got our tuition that we're charging, any additional fees, and then any discounts that you're giving, you're going to make sure that you deduct those. Our net revenue is basically how much money is the parent paying you? How much are they writing that check for? Or how much are you running that credit card or that ACH draft for? So there's a big difference between the tuition that we charge and the net revenue that we collect. This is a worksheet question, by the way. You know, what is included in the net revenue, or how do you determine the net revenue? It's how much money you're actually getting paid, and that's what I want you to focus on. I see people fail at doing their cost of care analysis because they enter in the tuition rate instead of what they're actually collecting. All right? And you're not going to get an accurate number when you do that. You need to make sure that you're entering exactly what that parent is paying, or how much money you're getting paid for that child, whether it be the parent or the subsidy program. Okay? So understanding that net revenue is important right there. All right. Next thing, let's talk about the biggest expense you have in your program. Okay? The biggest expense that you have in your program is payroll. All right? Now, those of you that kind of jumped on a little bit late, or those of you that just need a little bit of a refresher, the industry average for many years now has been 50% of your revenue goes towards payroll. All right? Some of you that may run lower child staff ratios due to you being Texas Rising Star or nationally accredited, or just, really focused on running, a quality program, you may run lower child staff ratios. That's definitely going to increase your payroll cost, all right? Lower ratios, higher payroll, all right? In my organization, our goal is 55% payroll, all right? And the reason for that is, number one, we typically run lower child staff ratios due to our national accreditation and Texas Rising Star, but then we also have some other incentives like bonuses for employees, those type of things that are available. So I need to include that in my payroll cost, all right? So what all is included in your payroll cost? And this again is a worksheet question. What all is included in your payroll cost? Your salaried exempt wages. So those employees that qualify to be a salaried exempt employee, that's typically the director, sometimes the assistant director, but those salaried exempt employees, their wages. Then your hourly wages, so your employees that you assign an hourly rate to, hours worked equals hours paid, your hourly wages are in that. Benefits, any benefit that you offer the employee needs to be included here as well. So if you give them paid time off, all right, they earn or accrue paid time off, you need to make sure you include that in your payroll cost. Health insurance, you may be paying a portion of their health insurance cost. That's going to be included right here. Any of those type of benefits. You also want to include in your payroll cost the cost of processing that payroll. So if you're using a service such as, Paychecks or ADP or, WageWorks, or there's so many of them out there, your local accountant, your CPA, whoever is processing your payroll, they're charging you a fee to do that. That needs to be included in your payroll cost. And last, but most important, your payroll taxes, all right? So the employer portion of the withholdings, all right? So a lot of people don't realize that money that's deducted out of their paycheck, the government gets it from both of us, all right? They deduct it from the employee paycheck, but the employer typically has to match that deduction, all right? So we have our share of the payroll taxes. Unemployment taxes, all right, that we collect off of the first $9,000 of an employee's salary each year. So you have an assigned unemployment tax rate, all right, whatever that may be in your world. You have your assigned unemployment tax rate, and you're going to pay that tax rate on the first $9,000 of the employee's salary, all right? And that's going to be included in your payroll taxes and your deductions. and that's going to give you your total payroll. All right, your total payroll. So that's a lot of stuff that's included in your payroll cost. It's not just their $10 an hour times 40 is $400. There's a lot more. All right, that's included right there. Okay, and that needs to be, like I said, industry average 50% of your net revenue. That's the goal. Or we do 55% in my world. Now, I work with some of you, and I've coached a few of you that, I was working with a church down in the Houston area, the North Houston area, and they were running 78% payroll. All right. And I was like, whoa, you're going to be bankrupt and out of business next week, 78% payroll. Well, then the more we got into it, they paid $1 a year for their building. The church also paid all of their utilities and paid all of their consumable cost. And the church paid for their insurance. Well, okay, now I get it. All right. If that was my situation, I could run 78% payroll too. All right. But their tuition rates were also a lot less than what we were charging. All right. So there you go. There is a wonderful website that I recommend that you go to. That is www.texaswages.com. All right, texaswages.com. Don't go now, go later, okay? But texaswages.com. And it's going to tell you what the average wage for basically every job in the state, all right? You can go in there and you can look and see what the average wage is, all right? And so there is a category, and it's category 399011 that is classified as child care worker. Now, as much as we hate that word, child care, we prefer early educator or preschool or Montessori or, we like those more professional titles, but they have us listed as child care worker. You're going to be able to see what the statewide average is for a child care worker at this time. The other really cool thing about TexasWages.com is that you can drill down on that and you can see your geographical area. All right. So maybe you are in the Austin area. Maybe you're in San Angelo. Maybe you're in Laredo. I saw one of my Laredo friends pop on just a bit ago. Their average hourly wage is going to be very different than someone in Dallas. All right. So it's cool because TexasWages.com, you can go in and you can drill down to your geographical area, and you will see, what is the entry level pay, what is the medium pay, and what is the high pay for a child care worker in your area. All right, and it's around $10 right now. Here's a kind of a picture of what it looks like, and you can kind of see your geographical area for you. But when you're looking at your payroll cost, you really want to look at what you're paying your people. Now, what I'm about to say might be very difficult for some of you to hear, all right? But I'm just going to say it, all right? I do believe that your payroll cost is a lot like buying shoes. You get what you pay for, all right? We want high quality, dedicated, and committed employees. You want long-term employees. You want people that share your beliefs and your values, all right? That's what we want right there. You're going to have to pay for it, all right? You're going to have to pay for it. And a big bullet point that I wanted to stress today in today's webinar, when you're planning for a successful 2021, we have got to take a good, strong look at what we're paying our people. I also want you to remember that during the pandemic, you have a lot of heroes in your building. You have teachers that came to work every day and provided care for those children, putting their lives and their families at risk, wearing their mask, wearing their PPE equipment, okay, following your enhanced health practices. You need to celebrate them, all right? Because your business wouldn't be where it's at right now if it wasn't for those dedicated employees. And a lot of them have done it on a minimal salary, all right? And I know that we've talked in previous webinars about the struggles with dealing with the unemployment and people that were getting the additional unemployment and trying to get your employees back. And yeah, that was a nightmare. But how many of you had employees that stuck with you and never even took advantage of some of those opportunities, all right? Because their focus was on the dedication of your school. We need to celebrate those people. And moving into 2021, we're getting a lot of recognition for, childcare being there and how essential we were for the economy, how essential we were to get people back to work. Lordy, we have been fighting this battle for 40 years now. It is crazy that it took the pandemic for people to see it, all right? We need to pay people what they're worth. All right, now, is that going to increase your payroll costs? Absolutely it is, okay? But here's the other thing I want you to keep in mind with this conversation, that the United States Department of Labor has data that basically says anytime you hire a new employee, it costs your business approximately $7,000. The number they have is like 7,200, and well, it's a weird number, but let's just call it $7,000. So every time you hire a new employee, it costs you $7,000. So I want y'all to think, just in 2020, all right, how many new employees have you hired this year? Okay, think about that number, all right? And it might be less than normal years because we were actually letting people go instead of hiring them, but I'm sure you still had some new hires this year. Multiply that by 7,000, and that's how much money you've spent on new employees this year. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, all right? So planning for a successful 2021, we're going to eliminate that number, all right? We want to get rid of that $7,000. All right, that's how we're going to be successful next year, is to reduce turnover. Okay, we're going to have to do that very strategically. Some of you might be asking, where does that $7,000 come from? All right, what is made up of that $7,000? Well, it's a combination of a whole bunch of things. Okay, the time you spend recruiting, the time you spend interviewing, the time that you spend hiring, orientating, coaching, set that employee up for success. Once you hire them, then you have their cost, all right, of orientation and training and getting them set up for success. But then the biggest thing that you've got to look at, and I've already mentioned this once, anytime you hire a new employee, you pay unemployment taxes on the first $9,000 of their salary to the state of Texas. Those of you that are in Texas, not only do you pay your payroll tax on the first $9,000 of their salary for the state, but you also have federal unemployment tax. And your federal unemployment tax is based on the first $6,000 of their salary. All right? So, if I have an employee that leaves me in April, all right, and they're gone, I've already paid unemployment taxes on the first $9,000 of their salary, and they just walked out the door. So all of that money I paid just walked out with them. And then I have to hire a new person. And as soon as I hire that new person in April, I start paying that unemployment tax on the first $9,000 of that new employee all over again. all right? And then they work, until September, and then you don't let them have Friday off, so they quit and they walk out on you, okay? Not only does that employee walk out, but all the money that you paid in unemployment taxes just walked out with them too. And then I hire another employee, and guess what? It starts all over, all right? So that's where it comes from. Every time you hire a new employee, it costs you an average of $7,000. Turnover of staff costs your business a ton of money, all right? I see a comment on Facebook, show me the money. Yeah, you want to see the money? We got to reduce turnover, okay? I got a question, do non-profits pay unemployment? It depends on your company structure, all right? It depends on your company structure on whether or not you're paying unemployment taxes. So I'm going to refer you to your CPA for that particular question because it's going to be different for a lot of you, all right? Some nonprofits choose to participate in unemployment on their own, all right? And you can look into that as well. There are some benefits to that, okay? You got to look at unemployment. Unemployment is basically an insurance policy, all right? That's basically what it is. And just like your car insurance, your homeowner's insurance, your liability insurance at the school, you pay a premium every month, whether you use it or not, all right? And you pay that premium and you never get it back. But then, say you do have an accident, you do have damage to your home, you do have an incident at your school. Because you've been paying this premium, you have a benefit. And so I get to file a claim and it's possibly paid. All right, that's how insurance works right there. Well, that's basically how unemployment works. The employer pays taxes, the employee pays taxes, they're paying a premium, therefore there are benefits available. If the employee loses their job at no fault of their own, and that's key, all right, they lose their job at no fault of their own, they get to file for unemployment benefits. Because they've been paying a premium, they have benefits available to them. So going back to the question about nonprofits, all right, if you're not paying a premium, there's no benefit. Okay, so, that might not be the best situation for some of your folks right there. All right, so take a look at that. All right, let's get past all of those. Something else that I will share with y'all that is a very helpful tool is I have a formula that you can use to help determine your payroll cost in each classroom. And you want to make sure that you write this down, okay? Because not only is it going to be very helpful for you to plan a successful new year, but it's also going to be a worksheet question. All right, so basically the formula to determine how many employees do I need, all right, each day or whatnot. You're going to take your current enrollment, so how many children are currently enrolled, all right, in each classroom, not what you're forecasting, not what your capacity is. So once again, just like our cost of care, how many children are actually enrolled. So you're going to take that enrollment number, multiply it by the average number of hours that child is in attendance. All right. Now, you don't want to do this for each individual child and then add it up. I would just come up with, for each classroom, what is the average number of hours that the kids are in attendance. Typically in years past, we've used 10 hours because the assumption is that a parent works an 8-hour day, and we're going to say it takes them an hour to get to work, it takes them an hour to get home, all right? Or they may actually be gone 9 hours because they have an hour lunch break in there, and then 30 minutes to get to work, 30 minutes to get home, however you want to look at it. But, typically in the past, we would use 10 hours as our average. Nowadays, if you really start looking at your attendance sheets and you're looking how long is the child typically in care, we're going to see it be more like 10 and a half or 11. All right. Now you're going to have to look at your program to determine what is the average number of hours each child is attending your program. But you'll take your enrollment times the average number of hours the child is in care. So let's just say we're going to use 10. So I've got 7 kids enrolled in that program times 10 hours times 5 days a week. All right, assuming that every child comes 5 days a week. So enrollment times hours times days divided by the child staff ratio that you're following. All right, so let's say I'm doing an infant room right now. All right, I've got 7 kids enrolled. All right, so I'm going to take 7 kids times 10 hours a day times 5 days a week divided by, I'm running a 1-to-4 ratio, so divided by 4. Okay, so that's going to tell me that, you know, I can spend 87.5 hours in that classroom this week. All right, that's what I'm allowed based on 7 kids, 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, following a 4-to-1 ratio. Okay, so when you're doing your scheduling and you're making sure that classroom is covered, 87.5 hours is what I've got. All right, if you're spending more than 87.5, you're going over and you're losing money. All right, so good formula that we've got right here, and I do have an Excel spreadsheet, y'all. I have an Excel spreadsheet for everything. I just want y'all to know that. I have an Excel spreadsheet that I've got set up, and I don't mind sharing it with you. All you have to do is enter in your enrollment, and it'll tell you what your hours allowed are. All right. Now, if you're running a different ratio, you might want to adjust the formula for your ratios, or if you're only open 3 days a week instead of 5, you would want to adjust that. But it is a very, very helpful tool for you to see that, you know, where I'm not managing my hours appropriately. Where it gets tricky, okay, and this is where your leadership skills have to come into play. Let's say we're running state ratios. All right, let's just say, for example, we're running state ratios, and I've got a 2-year-old classroom with 13 children. Now, the child staff ratio, if we were running state ratio, is 1-to-11. All right, so I'm going to use the 11 for my calculation, but I've got 13 kids in there. I'm 2 kids over ratio. So I have to have an additional employee in that classroom for 2 kids. All right. You're going to see that you're going to be upside down on the number of hours you're using versus the number of hours that are allowed because of 1 or 2 kid being over ratio. That's where, when you're doing your planning and forecasting and we're enrolling new children, you got to do this very strategically, because enrolling 1 or 2 additional children into that classroom may cost you more money than your current enrollment, because you're going to have to hire and pay an additional teacher, okay, for that 1 or 2 child. All right, so you got to look at it as how many kids is it going to take for me to break even with that second teacher. This formula is going to help you with that. All right, it's going to help you. The other thing, when you're looking at this salary formula, okay, so enrollment times hours a day, the average number of hours the child is in attendance, times the number of days that they attend, so 5 divided by child staff ratio. You also want to add in there any non-classroom hours. All right, so if you're doing this for the whole school, it's going to look like you're going to have an infant line, a toddler line, you know, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, because we have different child staff ratios for those age groups. So you want a line for each one of them to get the right calculation. But then I'm also going to have a line in there for 40 hours for the cook, 40 hours for the assistant director, bus runs. You know, when we're having to do bus runs, we need additional hours for that. So I've got to have additional employees to do those bus runs, you need to make sure that you're budgeting those hours when you're looking at your salary matrix, okay? So don't forget about those non-classroom hours. And I would get into the habit of looking at this every week and determine how many hours you're allowed each week. And at the end of the week, how many hours did you spend? All right? Were you over or were you under? And then really take a look at your scheduling right there. When we talk about planning for a successful new year, being able to manage your payroll is going to be critical, especially since we've already talked about we need to pay our employees what they're worth. All right? Now, with that being said, we also need to be managing their hours very, very carefully. Okay, so that's important right there. And again, I don't mind sharing this Excel spreadsheet with you, but otherwise it's pretty simple to do that calculation. All right. One of the questions that I had right here is, so after looking at this formula and really looking at the number of hours that you're giving out, are your employees walking off with your profits? And those of you that may be coming in upside down, or you're losing money right now, it might be your money is going right out the door with your employees. All right. Oh, I feel bad for her, so I make sure she gets 40 hours, even though I only need her 25. I'm going to let her sit up in the office and cut out flowers. Well, there goes your profit. And, then next month you're out of business. So sacrificing that employee and their hours, was it worth losing your business over? So think about that right there. All right. There you go. Let's talk now about your operating expenses. Your operating expenses should always be under the microscope. All right. You should always be looking at your operating expenses and always thinking, how can I lower these expenses? The first thing we want to look at is we want to determine what are your fixed expenses. All right, so I want y'all to make a list of what are your fixed expenses. And this is a worksheet question, by the way. But what are some of my expenses that are the same every month, no matter how many children I have? Okay. So what are the fixed expenses? I'm going to pay this no matter what. All right. No matter the number of children I have, this is what I'm going to pay. I got a question about, I really don't understand this question, but we are overstaffed, but how can we leave one teacher with 9 toddlers alone? Same for 2s. Well, if you're running state ratio, then that's the ratio you're following. If you choose to run lower child staff ratios, then you're going to have to absorb that expense. All right, you're going to need to plan and forecast for that. But have I seen toddler teachers run a very, very successful classroom by themselves with 9 children? Yeah, I've seen it. Have I seen 2-year-old teachers be very, very successful and have a high quality classroom with 1 teacher and 11 children? Yeah, I've seen it. Here's my thought on this. A horrible teacher with 11 kids is going to be a horrible teacher with 7 kids. All right? So, sometimes we get caught up on this ratio thing. What we really need to be looking at is the skill set of the teacher. All right? And if they're a fabulous teacher with 7, they're probably going to be a fabulous teacher with 11. All right? So look at your skill set right there. All right? Now, if you go over that and you need that second teacher in there, but you're only 1 or 2 kids over, then yeah, you're going to be spending money for that additional teacher that you may not have the tuition to back it up. So that's where, planning that maybe the second teacher isn't full-time. Maybe that second teacher only works 30 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week. So they come in later whenever they're needed. They go home earlier when ratios go down or whatnot. It also means that this second person may work in multiple classrooms. All right, so they're assigned one class in the morning, another classroom in the afternoon to meet that ratio. So that's where I talked about your leadership skills are going to be critical right here. That not everyone gets their 40 hours. All right, that some people may be a 30, 35 hour based on the needs of the classroom. All right, so there you go. All right, what are some of your fixed expenses? Y'all go ahead and y'all type this in. Let me wake y'all up for just a second right here. But what are some of your fixed expenses? Meaning you pay the same amount of money every month no matter how many children you have. Give me some examples of fixed expenses right here on Facebook Live. Let's see what y'all have to say. All right. The first one and biggest one is typically going to be your rent or your mortgage. All right. Whatever you have in your lease or whatever you have in your loan, you're going to pay that facility cost no matter how many children you have. Your bank or your landlord is not going to say, well, you know, you're down on kids, so I'll lower your rent or I'll lower your mortgage payment. Nope, you're going to pay that no matter what. All right. Insurance. All right. I'm going to agree with insurance being a fixed expense right there. However, your student accident policy is typically based on the number of children you currently have enrolled. Now, typically that is set on an annual basis, okay? And you pay your student accident policy for the entire year. But those of you that are dramatically down on enrollment right now, you may want to contact your insurance broker and say, hey, when we renewed my policy, we had 200 kids in the building. Now I've got 120. We need to renegotiate our student accident policy. We need to bring our student accident policy down to 120 kids instead of 200 kids. That's going to save you some money. All right. Now, your general liability, your commercial policies, all of that stuff, yeah, that's fixed. It is what it is. Your student accident part, you need to stay on top of, especially if you've had a huge reduction in your expenses right there. Vehicles, loans that you may have, those are pretty fixed right there. Contracts that you may have. So maybe you're leasing a copy machine, you're leasing a fish aquarium, those type of things. Computers, some of you might lease computers. Those are fixed expenses. They're not going to change. Utilities is not a fixed expense, all right? Your utilities fluctuate based on the usage. So when we're talking about planning for a successful 2021, it's being very, very aware of your utility cost, all right? And how much water we're using and how much electricity we're using and the rate that we're paying, all right? Y'all need to make sure that you're paying very close attention to how much you're paying. Let's talk about electricity first. How much you're paying for electricity. You need to renegotiate your energy cost every year, okay? Unless you're in a co-op, okay? Unless you're in a co-op, which there's not very much of that out there these days. There's a little bit. I have one school that's in a co-op situation. But unless you're in a co-op, you get to renegotiate your electric cost, all right? And this is how it typically works, and this is why I wanted to bring this up, because it's huge. It's huge. You typically will sign a contract with your energy provider for 1 year, and they're gonna give you a really low rate that first year. That's how much you're paying, based on your usage. As soon as your 1 year is up, they automatically increase your rate. And most of the time, they won't notify you. All right? So you kind of need to put it on your calendar that every single year, you're contacting your energy provider and renegotiating your rate. And if they don't give you a lower rate or keep your rate low, you need to move. All right. And we have that option now. For many years now, we've had the option of choosing our energy provider, unless you're in a co-op. All right. But we just moved 2 of our buildings that, you know, we were with. I think it was TXU and Constellation Energy, and we moved over to Zero and got an amazing rate. It's going to save us several $100s a month per building. All right. So make sure you're staying on top of those utility costs. Your waste, your trash dumpsters. That's another one that you need to constantly be looking at that bill and how much are you paying. And you need to make sure you're renegotiating that every year. All right. Don't just take whatever they charge. All right. And the trash dumpsters is another one that the rates are all over the place. You can negotiate that. The only utility that you typically don't get the opportunity to negotiate is typically your water and sewer. All right, water and sewer, typically, you know, that's pretty fixed right there. Now, it's still based on usage, but your rate is going to be the same. Everything else, running a successful business is constantly negotiating how much you're paying. All right, so there you go. Phone bill, I would agree that phone bill is typically fixed these days. You know, we typically have unlimited long distance. It's not like it used to be where we had a long distance bill and a phone bill. Now, the only thing with the phone bill is your phone bill typically is your internet bill as well. All right. Now, internet is definitely one that you need to be constantly renegotiating. All right. Every year you need to be renegotiating how much you're paying for internet. It is mind-blowing how much we overpay for internet in a lot of situations. You can call and you can get that lowered, all right? Or potentially switch providers if they don't give you an acceptable rate, all right? Even some of your consumable cost, your food and milk, your paper cost, all right? These are things that you need to be looking at and negotiating. You know, for example, if you provide diapers and wipes in your program, and let's say, you know, you're using McKesson for diapers and wipes, all right? I guarantee you that provider, all right, has a sheet of paper that's got different rates that they charge different businesses, all right? We don't all pay the same cost for those diapers and wipes or those chemicals or those paper towels or the toilet paper, all right? Everyone's kind of on a little scale. And based on the size of your business, based on the volume of business that you're doing, you know, the more you buy, the probably lower rate you're going to get. But you can call and negotiate that, all right? Hey, how much am I paying for my chemicals? How much am I paying for my diapers, my wipes, my paper plates, you know? Hey, let's talk about getting that lower, all right? And do your comparison shopping, all right? Spend some time to shop around to other providers. You know, is there a company that I can get my toilet paper from cheaper, all right? Hey, look, I just found this other company that is 75 cents a roll cheaper than what I'm paying right now. Call your current provider up and say, hey, look, I found this other company that has the same quality toilet paper at 75 cents a roll cheaper or whatever it is. You can either match it or I'm going to go to them. And most of the time they'll match it, all right? They're going to do some negotiating with you, but don't just roll over and take what they're charging, all right? Being a good business leader and being financially smart is that you are aware of this and you're constantly renegotiating, all right? Food and milk, we typically tell you about 4.5% of your revenue should be spent on food and milk. Those of you that are providing food, that you're serving, preparing and serving food. Now, some of you, I know you don't do this, so obviously you won't have that expense. But if you are providing, 4.5% is typically what we see. Right now, we're closer to 5%. Because of the pandemic, we've seen an increase in cost of milk and some of our other food items. So we're actually we're definitely seeing that on our profit loss statements, the increase in food cost. There's two things that when we're talking about expenses that will get out of control and cost you a ton of money really, really fast. All right. The first one is payroll. If you don't stay on top of your payroll and manage your hours, use the formula I gave you a minute ago, all right? That costs you a ton of money. The second item that tends to spiral out of control really fast and cost you a fortune is food and milk, all right? So we really need to be looking at the serving sizes, the number of children we're serving, if you're providing lunch for your staff, because we want them to eat with the kids typically, but you really need to manage that food cost right there. Now, a lot of you participate in the federal food program. I love that program. We participate in it. That way we get reimbursed for many of the meals that we serve. And that is a great way to offset these costs. And they've done some fabulous things during the pandemic to really support us, that a lot of you are taking advantage of as well. All right. When you do your cost of care, one thing we didn't talk about earlier when we went through cost of care is your vehicles and school age programs, because we talked about you're going to lose money on your infant toddlers. You're probably going to start breaking even around 2-year-olds. We don't start making a profit until 3s and 4s. What about school age children? Are they profitable or are they costing you money? Well, it can go either way. All right, your school age program can either be very, very profitable, all right, or it could be a huge deficit, all right. Typically, what makes the difference are your transportation costs, all right. So, are you paying for transportation? Do you have a bus that you own or you lease, all right, or is the school district providing transportation for you? Are you making a monthly payment on that bus? All right, whether it's a loan or a lease. Okay, you need to make sure that's in your cost of care. This is where it's going to swing. If I'm having to pay for my transportation, you're probably on either the low end or upside down. Once my buses and vans are paid for, that's when we start seeing the profit. But even after that bus or van is paid for, you still need to make sure that you have depreciation in there, okay? So in your cost of care, make sure you have a line item for depreciation, all right? Every single day that I drive that bus, the value of the bus goes down, okay? Buses and vans, furniture, and computers, all right? You need to make sure that you're depreciating. All right, I want you to think about if I were to close my building today and have a big garage sale, I could sell all of this furniture, I could sell all of these computers, I can sell all of my buses and vans, and I can get X number of dollars for them. Every single day that you're open and you use these items, the value gets less and less, okay? So you're going to work with your CPA and you're going to determine a depreciation amount. But that's really important when you're doing your cost of care for your school-age children. Even though that vehicle may be paid for, you need depreciation in there. All right, so that's going to help you as well. Property taxes, I've already talked about a little bit. Make sure that when you get your property tax bill, fight it. If you feel like you're being overtaxed or the value of your business or building is inflated. There are plenty of companies out there that will do this for you for a fee. They usually collect a percentage of what they save. 10%, 5% of whatever they save you is what their fee is. But if they can knock $20,000 off of your property tax bill, that's worth, $2,000 in a fee. All right. I will tell you, I told you at the beginning of the webinar when we first became business owners, we didn't know what we were doing and we were inexperienced and we made a lot of mistakes. And, I went several years and just paid the property tax bill that I got in the mail. Now we file them every year. All right, every single year. And it's unbelievable the amount of money that we save every year by protesting the property tax and the value right there. And it's going to be interesting post-pandemic, all right? Not only property taxes, but income taxes and what our tax filings are going to look like, throughout all of this. Next year, that's going to be an interesting topic. We'll probably have a few webinars on this once we know more. Now, once we get to the bottom line, all right, so how much money do you have left over after your tuition you collected, your payroll, your operating expenses? Don't go spending that money just yet. There's one last very important part of planning for a successful year. All right? And man almighty, has this been a lifesaver this past year. All right? You need to make sure you have savings accounts set up. All right? And what I recommend is that at least 2 different savings accounts per business. All right? And you need to have a dedicated amount of money that automatically goes into those savings accounts every week or every month, however you want to do it. But don't just look at that bottom line and say, okay, that's what I've got left over. I need to also take care of my savings accounts. All right? Fiscal fitness and being a healthy business means you've got money in reserve. All right? I've got money down here waiting to catch me when I fall. All right? So the first savings account that I recommend that you put in place, I like to call it my December account. All right? Because y'all know in the month of December is a horrible month. All right? We typically have a lot of employees that want to take off work and use their paid time off that they've earned. We have a lot of parents that leave us for the month of December, or those of you that are still offering absent credits are absent for the month of December. We have property taxes that are coming due, so we're having to start paying our property taxes, both, facility and content property taxes. Some of y'all give Christmas bonuses and Christmas parties, and you have those expenses in December. December is a tough month. So I have learned to start a savings account, and every week I put a little bit of money into what I call my December account. That way, when the month of December gets here, I don't have to stress about having enough money to pay for all of the absent credits and the paid time off and the holiday parties and all that kind of stuff. I've got my little money over here in an interest-bearing account that is ready to save me in December. Okay? Y'all, that's been one of the smartest things I've ever done, is started that bank account just for the month of December. The other bank account, savings account that I want you to make sure that you set up is what I like to call my significant event account. All right? So a little bit of money, whatever you can afford, and it's going to be different for everybody based on your business needs, but determine amount of money that every week or every month you can pull into this significant event savings account. All right. So in the event that you do have a flood in your building, you have a pipe that breaks in the wall and it floods your entire building. All right. You have a severe weather and a tornado comes and knocks a tree into your building. The hurricane comes and you're forced to close because your building is damaged, whatever it may be. All right. You're going to need to have money set aside to get you through that significant event. Now, yes, you may have insurance, and that insurance may cover that building damage. Your insurance may even cover your business interruption during that significant event. But those of you that have never experienced this personally, you don't get that insurance check on day one. The day that pipe breaks in your building, they don't automatically write you a check. All right? You typically get that check months later. But you're having to cover the cost of the building repair and the business being closed and the employees, maybe not getting paid or whatever you decide to do. You're going to have a lot of upfront expenses before you get that insurance reimbursement. All right? So if you don't have money setting aside for those type of situations, you're not going to make it. And unfortunately, we saw a lot of businesses during the hurricane that, they thought they had appropriate insurance, they didn't, and they didn't have money set aside for significant events, they lost their business. The pandemic, all right? I've been teaching this class for several years now, and the Fiscal Fitness. Y'all, I can't tell you how many phone calls and emails I have received from people. Thank you so much for encouraging us to have a savings account for significant events. It's the only thing that's gotten them through the pandemic. All right? Didn't cover everything, but it helped, right? And I know that I would not have been able to survive the pandemic if we didn't have some cash sitting aside, right there as well. So when we talk about what's left over, you got to talk about where that leftover money is being allocated. All right. So definitely, an end of the year account, definitely a significant event savings account. All right. And then if possible, depending on how healthy your business is, if you can have a third savings account that is just money that goes to savings. All right. It's just capital. All right. And all it does is sit there. All right. Then that's a smart thing to do too. And that's how you can determine how healthy your business is how much money you have on reserve. All right. And then, my advice to you, and this is a worksheet question, what do you do with your money in your savings accounts? My advice to you is nothing. You let it sit there. All right. You let it sit there and make interest and make money. But I'll tell you, when we talk about being a successful leader, you cannot be a successful leader when you're walking on eggshells. When you're constantly worried, do we have enough money to keep this business afloat? You cannot be an effective leader. All right? When you know that you're financially secure, and you've got this extra money sitting over here in case something happens, you've got that, security, you can be an effective leader then. But y'all, you cannot be an effective leader when you're walking on eggshells. So that's why I put this worksheet or this workshop together today, because we are getting ready for 2021. We are planning for a new year. We have a lot of uncertainties. It's a whole different business model now than it was before. We've got to make sure that we're planning and forecasting correctly so that we can all still be here in October of 2021, a year from now. All right? And we got to play it smart, but we got to put our business hats on. All right? and there you go. So don't touch that savings account money right there. All right, so I got a couple of things before we close up, because y'all know I like to give you a little bit of time to complete your online worksheets. So I just have a couple of follow-up tips for you. Hopefully this information was helpful today. We've gone over a lot of stuff, a whole lot of stuff. Even if you wrote down 2 or 3 things, that's great, all right? You learned something. Make your business stand out. All right. Now, the key to success, through this pandemic and post-pandemic is that your business needs to stand out. What are you doing different than other providers out there? Now, the big focus is going to be your health and safety standards. All right. What are your processes for maintaining a healthy environment? And that needs to be included in every piece of marketing material that you create right now. All right. Not only what are your health practices, but how does your business care about the community? What are you giving back to the community? That also needs to be included in all of your marketing pieces right there. Don't settle when it comes to quality, all right? We mentioned earlier in the webinar that you want to define your vision, your mission, what you stand for. And when you're making these financial decisions, don't compromise on that part of it. It will come back to you in the long run. All right? Get the best deal. Constantly renegotiate. All right? Constantly renegotiate your electric cost, your consumable costs, those type of things. There you go. Be aware of your fixed expenses. All right? Be aware of the expenses that don't change based on your business needs. All right? And that's important right there. Put every expense on trial, all right? Put every expense on trial. Another big tip to be financially successful in a post-pandemic world, avoid having debt when possible, all right? So try to eliminate that debt. And like we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, a big goal for 2021 is going to be eliminating debt and not creating more debt. That's going to put you in a better position to be successful. I see here a question on Facebook about the worksheets that I have mentioned, the Excel spreadsheets. I'm going to post those at the end of today's webinar. That's what I mentioned earlier today, is that they're not available now. They're going to be available later this afternoon. If I made them available now, y'all would be playing with numbers instead of paying attention to me. And I don't want you to play with the spreadsheets until I'm done with you. Sorry, Rosie, I'm a little selfish like that, okay? All eyes on me, not the Excel spreadsheet. All right, but yeah, I will post them on my website, timthetrainer.com. Go to Documents, and I will make those available later on today, and I'll put something on Facebook about it too. All right, market, advertise your profitable classroom. So when you do your cost of care analysis and you determine what are your profitable classrooms, that's going to be what you put your focus on with marketing and advertising. All right. Every single person on your team is financially involved in your business. All right. So you want every single employee your business partner, basically. Because if you have one employee that is throwing away your toys and your equipment, or you have one employee that is throwing away, too many supplies, that's costing you a ton of money. So we got to take a really close look at that. Are your profits going down the toilet? Literally, with the amount of toilet paper that we use right there. Grow your savings accounts. Y'all, I cannot stress that enough. I cannot stress that enough, that you grow your savings accounts and have that money set aside. And if you can make it to where it's not easily accessible, that's even better. So like it's in a completely different, not just bank account, but different bank, all right? So that I can't easily transfer from this account to that account, all right? So when it's easily accessible, I'll just take $1,000 and move it here. No, make it to where it's not so accessible. That's helpful. Only acquire the best customers. Remember I said earlier, not all money is good money, all right? Don't just enroll your parents. You need to interview your parents. You need to interview your customers, all right? And if that parent is not a good fit for your school, you get to say no, all right? But acquire the best customers and, make your customers your marketing partners. It's all about word of mouth these days, all right? Marketing is all about word of mouth. Make your parents your marketing partners, all right? So, and we've definitely learned this year, always expect the bottom to fall out tomorrow, all right? And plan for the bottom following out tomorrow. We could face another shutdown. It's very, very possible that we could go into another shelter in place and we're back to only accepting essential worker children. That's very, very possible that could happen again. There were many, many states out there that licensed childcare was forced to close altogether. We were very lucky here in Texas that we got to stay open for essential worker children. That wasn't the case in other states. All right, so could that happen again this fall, this winter? Yeah, it could. We're going to be a lot better prepared for it this time around. All right, you're going to do that with your successful planning. Okay, so your online worksheets should be posted on Facebook right now. I had it scheduled to post automatically at 11:15. So you'll see two options right there. Those of you that have done my courses in the past, you're very familiar with this. Those of you that are brand new, welcome. There is a $15 fee to receive a certificate of completion for today's webinar. If you are paying with a credit card, you will click on the link, Online Worksheet Paying with Credit Card. If you have an online account set up with me, so prior to this webinar, you set up an account with me, you were given a 5-digit account number, and so you'll click on Online Worksheet Paying with an Account Number. If you don't have an account number with me, don't click on that one, all right? Then you'll click on Paying with a Credit Card. There are 10 questions that you're going to answer based on the material covered today. So you might need to go back. Those of you that came in late, you might need to go back and watch the beginning of it. And then after you submit that worksheet to me, I will email you a certificate. We say within 72 hours. I typically turn them around within 24 hours, usually quicker. But just depending on what I have going on in my world, I like to leave a little bit of leeway. All right. Make sure you enter a valid email address. 99.9% of the time, when people don't get their certificates, it's because they put an invalid email address in. Make sure that you check your spam and junk folder. All right. A lot of times too, when people say, "Oh, I didn't get my certificate," it's sitting in their spam or junk folder. What I recommend is that you add Tim at timthetrainer.com to your safe sender list, all right? That way you can get the emails. And even though you may have gotten emails from me in the past, doesn't mean they're not going to go into spam or junk folder. It all depends on what Wi-Fi I'm on when I process that certificate, all right? So keep that in mind too. All right, I hope this was helpful. I had a lot of fun and great participation today and great number of people that participated today. That makes me happy. Make sure you join us tomorrow on Saturday for our teacher workshop. We're going to be doing engagement techniques, how to keep your teachers engaged with the children while in the classroom. And that's going to be at 9 o'clock on Saturday. As always, we do record all of these webinars, so if you missed today's webinar or you want to go back and rewatch it, it's available on Facebook, and it will also be posted on my website, timthetrainer.com, later on today. So if you've missed any of our previous workshops, you can go to our website, go to online training, scroll down, they're in alphabetical order, and I even have a little Facebook Live previously recorded icon if you want to know which ones are the videos. So there you go. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your Friday, or as we like to call it, Fry-yay, all right? And enjoy your weekend. Rest, relax, spend time with your family, and hang in there. We're almost till the end of the year. We got this, all right? We got this. I appreciate all of you so, so much. And y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks.